Welcome to App Stories. Today's show is brought to you by Collide and Squarespace. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vidici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing really well. We've got a very special episode today lined up for everybody. Yes, we're doing Q&A. Q&A from listeners, and we're actually recording this right now live in our Discord community for Club Mac Stories Plus and Club Premier members. So
I am expecting the comment from one of the members being like, "Oh, this is so weird to listen to App Stories live
because we talk slow.
You talk very slow, and I'm used to listen to you in Overcast or with 1.5x or whatever." Like somebody years ago at WWDC came up to me in person, said hi, super kind person, and after a while he just looks at me and he's like, "Oh, you talk slow."
You sound like you're drunk or something, right?
Yeah. Well, that was fun. Anyway, Q&A. Okay. I don't know. Hit me with some questions. I'm ready. Go for it.
All right. Well, why don't I want to start with the one we got from Sigmund on Mastodon. And Sigmund had like a 3-part question, but I mean, let's dig in and talk about this because the first one is about moving because both of us have moved into new spaces recently. And Sigmund asks, "I'm moving into a new space and realize just how many boxes I have, and wants to know if we keep product boxes from Apple or otherwise." And I'm curious.
Good
I think I know this about you. But why don't you start off?
I don't keep the boxes unless there are 2 exceptions to this rule. If I know it's a product that like I'm not fully sold on yet, I will keep the box if I have the potential desire to sell or return the product, obviously.
Right.
Like if I think, maybe I'm going to try this for a couple of months and then I'm going to sell it or give it back, then I will keep the box. The second exception is I never or very, very rarely throw away boxes for video game consoles. If only because of the emotional connection. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Interesting.
Especially Nintendo stuff. I cannot bring myself to throw out, a Nintendo box.
So you've got a Switch box and a Wii U box.
I do.
Do you have a GameCube box still?
I do.
Oh my gosh. Is it at your mom's house or is it at your apartment?
Yeah, it's at my mom's house.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, I don't really keep boxes either. There are like rare exceptions, especially if we get like review units from Apple. Obviously, those go back at some point. And like when I had the original M1 iMac, that thing comes in an enormous box that's even heavier, I think, than the iMac itself. And it was kind of a pain to keep that thing around. But how else would I get that back to Apple in one piece if it wasn't in its special fancy box?
Right.
So
I can't throw those away.
Yeah. So I don't throw that away, and I may ship it back to them at some point. But yeah, I don't, especially now. I mean, when we moved, sure, I did discover some old iPhone boxes and a few other things when I got ready to move, but we moved into a smaller place in North Carolina, and I'm very much, part of this move was declutter and stay decluttered. So I'm not keeping boxes.
All right. And the second question from Sigmund was, how important is Mac Stories as a website in comparison to Club Mac Stories? That's a very good question.
It is, yeah. I've got a couple answers to this.
I feel very strongly that Mac Stories is essential to everything else that we do, and we are very fortunate to have Mac Stories. I see Mac Stories, and I think you will see an evolution of what I'm about to say over the next few months and years. I see Mac Stories as the central hub for everything we do, and we are fortunate to have something like Mac Stories because we have a free website that everybody can visit that's been around for 14 years. I cannot believe I just said that. But we have sort of this free town square, right, that everybody can visit. And from there, you can choose, I see these guys, they do the club and they do some podcasts and maybe, they have digital products with Mac Stories Pixel. And so starting from that idea, I've always felt very strongly that at the end of the day, it's all Mac Stories, right? It all starts from there. Think of it like the castle in Super Mario 64. Like without the castle, you wouldn't be able to visit other levels. And
right.
That's the way I think of it. It's the core of what we do, and everything sort of starts from there and goes maybe in slightly different directions. But at the center of it all is always will be Mac Stories.
Right. I mean, you could look at it very much from a numbers perspective and say, oh, it's this percentage of revenue compared to the club. And that's one way to look at it. But actually, I think I'm with you. The value of Mac Stories goes far beyond the actual dollars that the website brings in, because it is the hub and it really is what drives everybody to things like the podcasts and the club itself and Mac Stories Pixel and everything that we're working on. And that's one reason why when the club was relaunched, we continue to pour as much effort into Mac Stories itself as we do all the other things that maybe are, subscriber supported and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And the final question from Sigmund was, let me open this link again. Health had hampered screentimes.net, excellent website, in 2022. After 2 surgeries, things are better in 2023. That's great to hear, Sigmund. Any advice from your own experience on getting things back on track following health concerns? From my perspective, yes, a couple of things. One is don't feel bad about saying no to stuff. That's a lesson that I'm still learning over the years. And there are things that you like to do. See, that's my struggle. There are things I like to do because I want to do them, but I also know that they are a waste of time, and ultimately they don't really contribute too much in what I do. And learning, like if it were up to me, I would be a guest on all the podcasts that invite me, because I love doing interviews and I love going on other people's podcasts. But the thing is, I just don't have the time for it. And so even though I really would like to do those, and I would like to be a guest here and a guest there, I just don't have the time, and I gotta prioritize. So learn to say no. And the other, I would also say, try and be as portable and lean as you can in your computing setup. That is also why, I started using the iPad years ago. And, if I'm going to stop using the iPad, I'm still going to primarily use a laptop of some kind. Because with health stuff, you need flexibility. And flexibility means you got to have a phone, you got to have a tablet or a laptop. Don't constrain yourself to a desk setup only.
Right.
Would be my personal advice. And lastly, take it easy. That's, don't overdo it.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself, man. It's what you gotta do. Like, yeah, I understand like the backlog of stuff and the to-do items, but also, those to-do items, they are to-do items. They're just tasks. So prioritize, say no, have a setup that lets you work from anywhere, and don't overdo it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you're in it for the long haul, the important thing is to take care of yourself. I mean, I know that I have been, and this goes beyond just the immediate question of particular health concerns, but I know that in the past I have sacrificed my health essentially for doing more. And while there can be times when you can justify that to yourself, it's not a good long-term strategy because you will burn out. And so you do have to take care of yourself. Federico, why don't you pick a question for the next one?
Okay, from Fran, also Glad Mac Stories Discord member. What is your favorite app of all time?
This is a hard one.
Yeah. Okay. I am torn between two.
Okay.
Obviously, I would go with workflow or shortcuts.
Right.
But I feel like this question is more tinted with nostalgia, like a favorite app of all time.
Right.
So I'm going to mention an app that doesn't exist anymore. I think on balance, my favorite app of all time, like the one that changed my life and that I have the fondest memories of, is Editorial, the Markdown text editor by Ole Zorn with automation built in. If only because Editorial opened up an entire world of possibilities to me, not just in terms of coverage, like of content that I create, but in terms of how I like to work. Editorial rewired my brain in terms of like, oh, what does it mean to write and save time and be efficient? Like, that's why. It's, yeah.
Interesting.
Editorial.
So I'm going to go for the nostalgia pick too, and something that probably people might not expect from me. And I'm going to say Instapaper, because before I ever had an iPhone, I had an iPod Touch, and Instapaper was perfect for that because I could download a bunch of stories to read later when I was commuting on the train into Chicago. And that's where I started reading sites like Mac Stories and all of Federico was doing there. So yeah, Instapaper is my nostalgia pick. And it is one of my all-time favorite apps. I think Read Later apps have always had a special place in my heart and in the app universe. And that's why I find the new crop that are out now so interesting. I think Instapaper is not an app I use anymore, but it was the first third-party app I think I ever had on an iOS device, and was on my home screen for many, many, many years. So I'm gonna go with Instapaper.
Yeah, David is pointing out in the chat that editorial, like you can still download it, and it's still functioning, but obviously it's been officially discontinued by the developer. It's no longer being developed officially.
Right.
But Ole recently announced that they're working on version 3.4 of Pythonista. Mm-hmm. I have it in my test flight. So it's good to see Pythonista coming back, hopefully with a more regular update schedule. We'll see. All right, John, pick one.
Let's go with the related one from Flowgrow, which is, if you would have to choose just a single app, productivity related, and that's the only one you're allowed to use, which one would you pick?
Today, so just pick one.
Yes, just one productivity app.
Well, okay, I'm gonna pick Obsidian.
So am I.
If only because
we write.
Because we write, and worst case scenario, if all the other, like, imagine if like the App Store equivalent of Thanos from the Avengers, like if Tim Cook snapped his fingers and all the other apps disappeared, but only one could be saved, I feel like it would be a safe bet and a good investment to keep Obsidian, because worst case scenario, you could build all the other tools inside Obsidian as plugins. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly why I would do it too. I could
publish to WordPress. I could read my RSS feeds.
You could have a task manager and a database. I could have a task.
Like, worst case scenario, if all the other apps disappeared, I could build them all back up in Obsidian.
Yeah, it's funny that we talk about this. I have actually kind of a semi-related article coming in weekly this week about this. But
about Tim Cook snapping his fingers?
No, not Tim Cook. It's all about Thanos.
Okay, all right, cool.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Collide. Collide has some really big news. If you're an Okta user, you can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. How can you do that? If a device isn't compliant, the user can't log into your cloud apps until they've fixed the problem. It's really that simple. Collide patches one of the major holes in zero trust architecture: device compliance. Without Collide, IT struggles to solve basic problems like keeping everyone's OS and browser up to date. Unsecure devices are logging into your company's apps because there's nothing to stop them. Collide is the only device trust solution that enforces compliance as part of authentication, and it's built to work seamlessly with Okta. The moment Collide's agent detects a problem, it alerts users and gives them instructions to fix it. If they don't fix the problem within a set amount of time, then they're blocked. Collide's method means fewer support tickets, less frustration, and more importantly, 100% fleet compliance. Visit collide.com/appstories today to learn more and book a demo. That's KOLIDE.com/appstories. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show. All right, where are we going next, Federico?
Okay, let me pick and choose here. This comes from Dylan, and
good,
Dylan
good
asks, "What are some ways you'd like to see Apple get weird in terms of software and apps?" So I often talk about this idea of Apple getting weird with hardware, but what about getting weird with software? I have some ideas. So, for example, and maybe this. See, the thing is, this is not supposed to sound weird, but I guess that at this point it might as well be a weird concept. pro apps on iPadOS. Maybe that seems weird for Apple. It seems kind of obvious to me. But on a weirder note, I think it would be really nice to see Apple get super weird with shortcuts and do stuff like you can use shortcuts to automate the UI of iPadOS. Like a new way to do UI automation, things like move the cursor here and simulate a click there, and resize this window and simulate UI interactions with shortcuts, sort of like you can do with Keyboard Maestro. I think that would be extra weird and very nice to see. Other weird things that I would like to see Apple do. I mean, I have another. I don't know, maybe that's not weird enough. I don't know. Do you have any weird ideas?
I do. I guess.
Software?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to see Apple go cross-platform more. And I don't mean cross-platform. Yes. I don't mean across its own OSs. I mean, I'd like to see messages come to Windows, for instance. You know what I mean?
Shortcuts for Windows.
Yeah, exactly.
Shortcuts for Windows.
Already they're doing some of this. And I don't see why they don't do it more. I mean, I guess I do know why. I mean, obviously, having the silo and attracting people into the fold is the strategy, perhaps. But I think that Apple's software is good enough that they could actually spread their wings into other operating systems and draw people into their own hardware from those systems just by the mere attraction of their software. So I'd love to see that. What else would I like to see? I guess it's somewhat weird with software, but allow the third-party app stores. I mean, an app store, right? An app store is software, and I really want to see the ability for Microsoft, for instance, to have a native Game Pass game or app, for instance. I mean, this thing about how you have to stream through the browser to play video games is ridiculous. There's no reason why it should be that way, and I think, maybe there are issues and security things that have to be considered, but it's not something that's not solvable either. So I think that's something I'd like to see.
The next question comes from Nikhil. I'm sorry if I'm getting your name wrong. Question for Federico. What's your biggest pet peeve about something iOS or iPadOS apps do or don't get right? And the same question for John, but about Mac apps. So something, my pet peeve, which really shouldn't be, but it is... undocumented keyboard shortcuts.
Oh yeah,
and I really dislike it when an app has keyboard shortcuts and it doesn't tell you because maybe they have a custom implementation of it, and they don't do it. Another is they do widgets but only in one size. Why? The whole point of widgets is to allow for multiple configurations. And look, I got this pet peeve about shortcuts too. A built-in Apple app on the iPad, it still doesn't support the XL size for widgets. So when they do widgets, but only in some sizes. No, either you do it all, or you do them all, or you don't do them. The whole point is to support the modern technology. You got to support all the sizes. If you can come up with a good design, then do a boring design. If the shortcuts team cannot come up with a good design for the shortcuts XL widget, just make it a rectangle with a bunch of shortcuts. It doesn't have to be revolutionary.
That's all the other sizes are. I mean, just extend it a little bit. All right.
What else? No, I think I have a list. Another.
Okay.
When apps that don't support dynamic type, and that they have their own built-in text control, and it doesn't pick up my text size, system-wide text size control on iOS and iPadOS. Thankfully, this used to be more of a problem years ago. It's not anymore. But yeah, I want to be able to control the font size in apps either as a global switch in the text size settings of my device, or you can now do that on a app by app basis, but those apps, they got to support dynamic type. I mean, if you don't, come on, it's 2023, you got to do it for accessibility. You got to do it because it's just important to support global text sizes.
Yeah, so, everybody has their own preferences with text size, whether they need it for accessibility reasons or not. All right, I've got a couple for you, Federico. One is with shortcut actions that developers release that are set with the toggle on for show and run. It drives me.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people do this, and it must be the default when you're creating app intents for shortcuts actions. But I always have to remember to go through there and toggle off all of those show and run, because there are very, very few times when I really want to show the action running when I'm running one of my shortcuts. That's a small thing. A bigger thing is kind of a conceptual idea, which is I don't like apps that assume that they are a silo and should be a silo and don't give you ways to get your information back out, or at least not easily out. I think that there are a lot of apps that feel like we've made this great app and you should just use it and not use anything else, but it really ignores the fact that information processed in one app is useful in another app. So they should support shortcuts, they should support URL schemes, they should support just plain old export, any kind of way to get the information back out and used in different ways that aren't necessarily the app themselves. This is an issue across all platforms, not just the Mac, but you definitely see it on the Mac as well.
All right, the next question comes from Wesley. Wesley of Apple Insider fame.
Okay.
Wesley asks, given how the past year with Stage Manager and everything else with iPad has pushed you, I assume this question is directed to me, has pushed you back to a Mac-focused workflow, are you moving on from being the iPad guy? And then the question continues. Would you go back to iPad as your primary or only computer if Apple makes it possible in the future? Or have you crossed too far into Macland to look back now? Well, first of all, who says I crossed into Macland? I don't.
You've always been in Macland a little bit. I mean, back in the day, you started out in Macland.
I started out in Macland, but I don't think I've made any official announcements lately that I have a Mac-focused workflow. This is an assumption from Wesley, which may or may not be correct. We'll see. But that is true. I have been pushed away from iPadOS Lens, that's for certain. So am I moving on from being the iPad guy? Was that an official role? Because I think like lately, I've seen a bunch of people, being able to work on the iPad, creating content for iPad. Is there a single iPad guy in this community? I don't know. It feels kind of strange for me to say, yes, I am no longer iPad guy. I don't know. What I can tell you is that, yes, it's not my fault, but I'm tired of waiting for the iPad to be the only computer I can use. Would you go back to iPad as your primary only computer if Apple makes it possible in the future? Yes. Fundamentally, I believe in this idea of, there's two ideas that I strongly believe in. One is I love Apple's design, the UI, the hardware, just their general sense of taste is unmatched in all the other platforms and devices that I've tried. And I feel very strongly about that. Like, I don't know what it is, but those folks in Cupertino, they got taste. And I just find the Apple stuff visually pleasing, whether it's UI or hardware. And the second is, I love this idea of a modular computer, like a thing that you can touch, you can close, open, put on your lap, put on a desk, put in your bag, use in the car. It's got cellular, or maybe it's got Wi-Fi. Like, I believe in this idea. So if the iPad can come back, and be like, oh, now it's running Mac OS, or now iPadOS has all the things you want to have on it, great, give me that. Like, so if that ever happens, sign me up, like, for sure. But my concern is, the reason why I've been so stressed for the past 6 months is that all signs are pointing to nothing changing in 2023, new iPads with the same design, but just with an OLED display in 2024. And so I've been so concerned because realistically, I'm looking at maybe changes to iPadOS in June 2024. And, no.
It's a long time. That's a long time
away, man. And to go another year and a half, a Stage Manager like this and all these other limitations, no, thank you.
Yeah, because they can't release, especially with the rumors we saw today that the iPad Pro is going to come out OLED and it's going to be even more expensive at the base model. You got to imagine that they're going to do something with the software to make it better, because otherwise, they're just going to kill the iPad, because why would you pay even more for the pleasure of not being able to use pro apps,
Yeah. And it's not just pro apps. It's the
No,
OS.
I know, but you know what I mean. I'm using that as
Yeah.
shorthand, I guess, as for how the OS works and Stage Manager and everything. But yeah. All right. Well, interesting. I've got one. Let's talk about this. Let's do this podcasting question from Scott. Scott asks, he says, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on services like Adobe Podcasts that can take virtually any audio and make it sound honestly quite good using AI?
Yeah, this is for you.
Right?
Okay.
It seems to be extremely different than any other AI audio cleanup tool I've used, example, Isotope, with its own impressive results and quirks. Also, what mics do we use and any other gear? Let's start with the AI stuff. I have tried Adobe Podcasts, and I don't know. I mean, it was impressive at what it can do in terms of cleaning up a messy audio recording. For instance, somebody who records with AirPods Pro or the mic in their laptop or whatever it happens to be. But the reality with recording is that you're always going to be better off with a good, clean recording up front. And no amount of AI or processing of any kind is going to be as good as a good, clean recording. And when I listen to the Adobe Podcasts AI tool, I can hear the artifacts that are created with cleaning that up. Now, if your only choice was to use the bad recording with the wind in the background and maybe like an air condition blowing or a fan or something, or what you get with Adobe AI wins, of course. But what I try to do when I'm editing our shows is Federico and I have, because we've done it a long time, we just know how to make a good, clean, quiet recording without a lot of background noise from the get-go. So the processing that I do on our audio files is very light touch, just meant to get little background noises out of the way, like if Federico bumps his desk or I do the same or whatever it happens to be. And that always comes out as the best possible recording. In terms of mics, I think you and I maybe are using the same thing now, Federico, which is the Earthworks Ethos microphone, No, you're not. Oh, no, I thought you were. That's what I use now.
No, I have the Neumann KMS 105.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, it's Alex who has the same one as I do. So the Earthworks Ethos used to be like an $800 microphone, which is really pricey. And I had a Shure microphone for like 5 or 6 years, finally graduated up to this Earthworks one. The reason I switched was just because from what I had read, it's supposed to be a better microphone overall. And the price dropped significantly. It dropped down. It's still an expensive microphone. I think it's $400, but it's not $700 or $800 anymore. And so after 5 or 6 years, I figured it was time for an upgrade and to try something new. And I've been really happy with it. Although it does, every microphone is really different in terms of the way it picks up your voice. And so whereas the Shure one, I had to be kind of more on top of it and really speaking very closely to it. This one, I can get away with sitting back a little further, which is nice when you're looking at a screen while you talk.
David from Discord asks, have you ever considered formalizing some of your more in-depth writing distribution as reference material? I ask because Federico's iOS and iPadOS version reviews are the most comprehensive documents for those releases available. First of all, thank you, David. That's very kind of you. And no, I haven't considered that, and I don't think I will, if only because I see it's a matter of expectations. When you formalize something, you say, okay, this is like a documentation for an OS. You got to make sure that you cover everything.
Yeah,
and it's different. And, there are other publications that do an excellent job at providing guides. I mean, you look at, for example, the folks at Tidbits, right? They provide a ton of like proper formal, like official guides for photos or Safari or Keychain, like whatever. Whereas in my reviews, like I prefer to skip some stuff and just write about the things that I have a strong opinion about. And so it's more of a personal document. And because of that, I am glad that it resonates with a ton of people. And I am glad that there are people like you who say, oh, this should be like an official thing. But I prefer to make sure and really stress, no, this is my review, because it's not a piece of reference material. It lacks information, right? If it's the nature of the piece. It misses information that you can find from other places, and that's fine, but this is my opinion. And I wouldn't want that opinion to pass as an official guide of sorts, because it wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, I would add two things to it from like a business standpoint. Is that one is the reviews do have a shelf life. Most everything that Federico and I do has a shelf life, and it's only going to be relevant for so long. So to put in that kind of effort for something that's more referencey, to turn it into that probably isn't worth it. And there's not a lot of the economics of writing reference materials are not particularly good either. So that's really another practical reason, I'd say, from my standpoint at least. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. You can stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything: your products, services, and even the content you create. Squarespace has got you covered. With Squarespace, you can use insights to grow your business. Have you ever wondered where your site's visitors and sales are coming from, and what channels are most effective? You can analyze all of that with Squarespace. Once you've got the data, you can improve your website and build a marketing strategy based on your top keywords and most popular products and content. Squarespace also can get you started with a best-in-class website template that can be customized to fit your needs. It's as easy as browsing the category of your business to find the perfect starting place, and you can customize it with just a few clicks. Plus, you can get started with blogging. Blogging's really big right now, and Squarespace has powerful blogging tools to share stories, photos, videos, and updates. You'll be able to categorize, share, and schedule your posts to make the most of the content you create. Squarespace is an absolutely fantastic way to get started with a website. It's the first place I went. I've told this story before, but when I got started with app development, I didn't want to have to deal with the website part of it, but it was important. So I used Squarespace, which made it super easy to get started and create a real professional looking site. It's great for that if you're a developer, but it's also great if you're selling any other kind of content online or just want to blog. It's a really flexible product that covers all the bases for any kind of thing you want to do on the web. So head on over to squarespace.com/appstories for a free trial with no credit card required. And when you're ready to launch, use the code AppStories to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/appstories. And when you decide to sign up, use the offer code AppStories to get 10% off your first purchase. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of App Stories.
The next question comes from Aaron. So we're switching to the home topic, and this is a super fun one.
Oh, this is a good one.
Since you both recently bought homes, what are your favorite technological house or tool purchases that are not typically considered quote-unquote tech? And Aaron provides some examples: power tools, electric snowblower, laser tip measure, etc. Okay. So I'm thinking about this. All right. So for sure, I got this LED light strip. It's not a tech thing, like it's not a smart thing, it's not connected to the internet, it's just a quote unquote like normal light strip, but it's super dense in the sense that it's a 240 LEDs per meter. Like
that's a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot of LEDs. It required like its own separate driver, like power adapter. And it required this whole installation in the bathroom. We had to buy a plastic cover that would certify like the fact that it needed to be waterproof, because it's sitting right above the sink and the shower in the bathroom. And it provides this super intense, natural white light. And the thing about it is, I didn't want to go for a smart one, because smart light strips, because of their very own nature, especially if you got like an RGB one that supports multiple colors, they cannot be super dense and packed with LEDs.
Right.
Instead, if you go for just a plain regular white one, these companies, they can stuff it full of LEDs very close to each other, and the effect is this very strong light. I forgot how many lumens, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when you put in a plastic diffuser on top of the light strip, you don't see the individual LEDs. We tried the setup before with the Philips Hue light strip, and we could still see the individual LEDs when we looked up at the ceiling. And that wasn't nice, because you could see like these dots.
Right.
Instead, I wanted to have like a single fluid light. And when you get these super dense light strips, which are kind of expensive and they require a separate power adapter, you just see one continuous strip of light. It's a very beautiful effect. And the company I got it from is called, I believe it's called like New Germany or Nuova Germany, like Nuova is in Italian. New Germany, I think it's actually New Germany. And I got it from Amazon Italy. I think you can get it in Europe. I'm not sure about the US.
Okay.
Do you have other house purchases that you like, John?
I do, but not many, because one of the reasons we moved into a condominium is so we don't have to deal with all that stuff anymore. We'll have people, take care of, we don't have a yard to take care of or, painting to do on the outside of the house or anything like that, which is great. So when we moved, we got rid of most of our, tools and other home equipment type stuff like that. But we did make one purchase when we moved in here that I'm really happy with, which is a Dyson V12 vacuum cleaner. It's one of these ones that's rechargeable and very lightweight and portable and has a lot of different attachments. And why that's been such a great purchase is that we live on 3 floors. And so if you have a big, heavy vacuum cleaner, it would just be really difficult to get up and down the stairs, or we'd end up buying, more than one just so we didn't have to move it. This way we have this one that sits in its charger, and it's always charged up, and it's very easy to move up and down the stairs to do the floors, or, put one of the attachments on and maybe vacuum a couch or something. Been really, really good purchase. But that's really been, I think from a non-tech standpoint, that's probably been one of the very few things that we've bought for this house.
Okay, so I love my new espresso machine.
Oh, yeah, that looks so nice.
It was expensive, a big purchase, but I really wanted to do it, so we did it. So I got a DeLonghi. I'm going to give you the name and the model number because everybody always asks. So the espresso machine I have, which has an integrated grinder. It's a built-in grinder, can do espresso, Americano, cappuccino. We just do espresso. DeLonghi La Specialista means specialist. Model number FEX9335M. This is the one I got. It's a big chunky boy. We got the space for it, and I love it. And it's helping me sort of become more knowledgeable about coffee beans. So I also found this Italian, how do you call it? That's not a brewery. How do you call
a roastery? A
roastery. Thank you. Brewery is for beer.
Yep.
A roastery from Florence, and so I've been trying different types of coffee beans.
Oh, okay.
I got some from Guatemala that I really liked, and some other from Bangladesh maybe. But yeah, I'm trying all these different flavors. And it's a nice experiment. It's a nice change from what I had before. What else? I mean, non-tech. See, I would have mentioned my Wi-Fi system, but that is tech.
Yeah, most of my stuff has been on the tech side since we moved in.
I cannot tell you. Yeah, and I cannot tell you about my desk because it hasn't been delivered yet. So for now, I'm just gonna go with a regular non-smart light strip from. And thank you, Omar, for finding the link. It is Nuova Germany. That's Nuova Germany, like the country. And my coffee machine. And the couch. Oh, man. Yes. Nilin, the couch, my new couch. It was another big purchase. So we got this couch. It's a linear couch for 4 people, made in Italy, handmade in Italy from this company called D3. That's DITRE. It's made in northern Italy, and we love it. I always had a small couch, and so we got this long one instead because I really wanted to have room for having guests or just, chill. And that's where I love playing video games now. Just sit in front of the TV, chill on the couch. Yeah, it's super comfy and it's very spacious.
Since you mentioned desks, I think I will mention my desk. And this is a preview. I have my desk set up coming in a column for club members. So that'll be out later today. But I got
Plus and Premiere members.
Yes, this is the Macintosh desktop experience. Yes. The true, and it really is the desktop experience because
it is.
Part of it is it's all about my desk setup and my office setup, really. But the desk that I got when I moved here is a fully bamboo desk. It's one of the, stand sit desks. I kind of guess I consider it part of my tech stack in the sense that I'm sitting here working at my Mac. But I've really liked this. I've really liked this desk a lot because it's about 2 meters wide and 30 inches deep. I don't know how many centimeters that is. But anyway, it's just really nice and comfortable and spacious, which is great for spreading out if I have a big project going on. But when I don't, I try to keep it really clear and clean. And so far, so good. I've really, really liked it.
Nice. Yeber asked, Federico, what are the stories behind the tattoos? So this is difficult. All right. Cool.
There's a lot of stories because there's a lot of stories here. Your hands and your arms.
Go quickly. Okay, so first, I got the Sheikah eye from The Legend of Zelda. That was my first tattoo. Got it on my right forearm. Then I got on my 2 wrists, keep writing. Keep is on the left wrist, writing is on the right one. Then I got a bunch of my fingers on my knuckles. I have the Mac Stories bookmark. I got the number 23 on my right index finger. That's my lucky number. I have the command key from the Apple keyboard on my left index finger, and I got on my left middle finger. I have a little sun and the sea. I got this because we have this matching tattoo. Sylvia and I and a close friend of ours, we all got it at the same time, so we thought that was fun. Then I have, I have on my right hand, extending on the forearm, I have an eye inside of a triangle. I love this idea of having like an eye because of the idea of like wisdom and all that knowledge. On my hands, there's a rose on top of it and a clock. So I really wanted to have this like floral thing going on with on the 2 opposite sides, an eye for wisdom and a clock for time. So the idea of like accumulating knowledge with time. And on the exterior side of the right arm, I have a rose with thorns and the text Per aspera ad astra. It's Latin for to the stars through some challenges, which has been inspired by the book series Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which is one of my favorite sci-fi series of all time. Also inspired by Red Rising, on my right calf, I have a huge lion with the text underneath the lion. This is in black and white. The one on the right arm is in color. On my right calf, underneath the lion, it says Hic sunt leones, which is another Latin phrase for here be lions. It used to be like this expression that apparently the ancient Romans used to use to mark on a map where enemies could be found. And it's also been reused in the Red Rising series. Then I have this whole thing on my left arm, like the entire arm. With the exception of the hand, the left hand is clean, but the entire arm extending through to the shoulder is covered in color. So it all started with another eye. So as you can see, I have 3 eyes on my body, one on the hand, one on the right forearm, and another on the left forearm. The one on the left is the eye from the manga series 20th Century Boys. It's the eye of the friend. Those who have read the manga will know what it means. That I started with that, and then I realized, I actually want to do my entire arm in color. So we found a way with my tattoo guy to sort of enclose the existing eye and build a new design around it. So I have, a snake that goes around a hourglass. Again, the idea of time. And I really love the idea of like a snake going around it. I like the shape of it. But I have so basically on the right arm, I have a clock. On the left arm, I have a hourglass. So the idea of time. Then extending to the upper arm and basically ending on my shoulder is a huge portrait, like our own version of the portrait of the muse Calliope, the muse of poetry and literature in ancient Greece. And lastly, on the outer side of the arm is a huge blue phoenix, like an entire blue phoenix sort of rising toward the shoulder, toward Calliope, all in blue and purple. And yeah, I mean, obviously the phoenix, raising from the ashes, starting over, starting new. I've done that plenty of times in my life.
Yep. All right.
I think that's all the tattoos I have.
All right. I want to move on to this gaming question that we got, Federico, which is, let's see, where was it? I had it a minute ago. Oh, here it is. Do either of you have a favorite third-party controller for the Switch? Peter says that he's been enjoying the Retro Fighters Brawler 64 for the N64 NSO. Do you have a favorite controller, third-party controller, teacher?
I think the one I like best is probably the Hori Pad Split Pro. What's it called?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I
they
forget
have
the
a new version out. They have a new version out. So I had the first one and it was okay, but the new one is better.
I have the new one too. It's good.
What's it called? Hori Split Pad Pro?
I think
something
so.
Like that.
I think
I got it in like white and lime green, I think is the color. And got it from this, if you are in Europe, I'm not sure if they ship in the US, but in Europe, this excellent website that I use for all sorts of Japanese import video game stuff. PlayAsia.com.
Huh.
I've been using PlayAsia since I was in high school, John.
Wow.
And, I used to ask my mom for money. Like, hey, I want to buy this Japanese version of Final Fantasy Tactics, which I still have, by the way. The Japanese version of Final Fantasy Tactics for PS1 with the soundtrack and the special booklet, I still have it. So anyway, PlayAsia.com.
So I've got a favorite too, Federico. It's the 8-bit Do Ultimate Controller. I love this thing. I mean, it's not been out. I think came out last summer, and it can be used both as a Bluetooth controller or with the Switch. And I've got it in white. It comes with a charger. You drop into the charger, it keeps it charged up, and it's got a really good battery life there. I know that it's available both on Amazon in the US and in the UK. Not sure about other Amazon stores around the world, but you can get it directly from 8-bit Do as well. Great controller just because it's really comfortable to hold. I've got it in white, and it reminds me, I guess, most of like an Xbox controller. And I've been using it for a variety of things, not just the Switch. It works well with the Switch, but I've also been using it with my Mac and for some other uses as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. I recently got that GameCube inspired one. What's the name of the company? Nixie?
Yeah, I think that's right. Nixie, I think it is. I got a clear one from them too, which is amazing. It's clear and it has LEDs in it. It's just like really over the top. Very, I don't know. I mean, when everything was made clear, they don't do that so much anymore. And this works very much like that one where you put it, it slots in like a regular Joy-Con, or you can put them together with a little piece in between and use it as a standalone controller.
We had a good question in the Discord from Omar. Are either of you regular readers of fiction? Which genres and how often do you read fiction if you do? Are you, John?
I am not. I do read fiction once in a very great while. I guess I'm a strange reader. I don't read books much, but I read all the time, constantly, because of what we do. I mean, I read tech stuff all the time, and I read hundreds and hundreds of stories a month, I guess, but I don't read books all that often. I am reading a book right now called Tracers about tracking down crypto criminals, which I had heard recommended by Jason Schreier.
Yes.
Right?
They mentioned this on the Triple Click podcast.
They did, and Jason seemed really into it on that. And I do find that kind of, I'm not a fan of crypto, but I am always intrigued by financial fraud. I guess it's my background as a bankruptcy lawyer. I find that stuff fascinating. And this is kind of the merger of those two worlds with tech and financial fraud. And so I've just started reading that this week. And it really does read like a thriller, that's the kind of nonfiction book I like. Fiction, it's been quite a while since I've read fiction. So not really my thing.
I saw one that I wanted to answer. So Bardi asks, recently 23 years old, has Federico's opinion on Oasis standing on the shoulders of giants changed during this time? No, Bardi. My opinion has not changed in that I think it's a good album that has been sort of panned by the press. And I think like Be Here Now, it's actually a pretty good Oasis album. Like I think that for example, I think I actually prefer Standing on the Shoulder of Giants to Ethan Chemistry.
Okay.
I think Gas Panic. Come on, that's such an excellent track. And I don't know, I feel like Standing on the Shoulder of Giants as like more and better weird ideas than Ethan Chemistry, for example. Just like Be Here Now, I think it's been criticized for having like a messy production at the time, and Oasis were doing a lot of stupid things in 1997 when Be Here Now came out. Standing on the Shoulders of Giants is the fourth album by Oasis, which came out in 2000. Was recorded in 1999. I think there's more fun and more weird stuff in Standing on the Shoulder of Giants than in other records, like other later Oasis records. For example, Who Feels Love? Like that entire production, I absolutely love. Like that entire exotic sounding use of drums and percussions, I really like. Little James, which is this super sweet and kind of basic ballad written by Liam Gallagher. I think it's actually like Liam's first authored song on an Oasis album. Gas Panic, I absolutely love. Go Let It Out, another one of my favorites. Super fun to see live. Yeah. And I mean, the opening track, which I cannot repeat on the show because we don't curse on this show, but yeah, the track number 1 on the album is also very good. Yeah, my opinion has not changed. I think it's a good Oasis record, better than most people give it credit for.
All right. Any other questions, Federico, that we should hit here?
Maybe there was a last one that I wanted to go over.
Okay.
From Lady Tortoise. That's a great username. I'd like to know how the Tick experiment is going.
Right. How is it going? I haven't heard anything about this.
I want to close with this one. It's going really well. So I switched to Tick. I have fun every time I say Tick. It's so fun to say as a name. I switched to it a couple of weeks ago. It's been going super well. It runs everywhere. iPhone, iPad, Mac, Windows, like Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It's super fast. The WatchOS app is incredibly fast. It runs independently on WatchOS, which is one of the reasons why I started using it in the first place, because I wanted to be able to dictate tasks to my Apple Watch Ultra when I'm out and about. I love the customization. I love the fact that I can choose to, and I use this more than I thought I would. You can enter tasks as any other task manager, but you can also enter notes. And see, obviously, I'm not using Tick as Obsidian or Notion. Mm-hmm. But, for example, there are times when John sends me long messages that contain a lot of information. And I love that I can paste those messages in Tick. Say, this is a note, but give a due date to a note. So it shows up on my day in my schedule alongside other tasks. I love it. So it's going really well so far. I want to see what's coming next from these folks in terms of updates and new features. So we'll see. So far, it's going really well.
What do you think of the design of it?
It's not great. It's not things. It's not culture codes things. Todoist looks nicer, but I've also seen worse. there's worse.
It's in the middle, is what you're saying.
It's
somewhere in the
middle. It's in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it's acceptable.
Right. That was kind of my take on it too, I guess. That was a trick question, Federico. I didn't mean to lay a trap for you right here at the end of the episode.
No, there's one. Come on, just one last one from Jonathan, also a Discord member, very active in our Discord. So thank you, Jonathan. On the topic of the Nintendo Switch, what are your favorite third-party Switch games that rarely get talked about? I'm gonna give you one that I haven't seen enough praise for lately, and I'm having a super fun time with it. Octopath Traveler 2. It is an excellent JRPG. You should go check it out if you're into, Final Fantasy and these sorts of games. I had concerns, and I was very skeptical of this game because I didn't really like the first one. The second one, I think, does a much, much better job at storytelling, at balancing sort of side quests with the main quest. It looks fantastic. The music is incredible. Like, the soundtrack is incredible. I don't remember the name of the composer from Square Enix, but it's a really, really, really good sequel. And I'm having a really good time with it.
I think it's the same composer as the original game too, if I remember right. But interesting. All right, I'll lay one on you, which is Blanc, BLANC, which is a black and white, more of an interactive story than it is a game. It's got simple puzzles. I wouldn't say that this is like game of the year material by any stretch of the imagination, but it's an interesting experiment in game making by a team that had not ever made a game before. So some of that inexperience shows in the game, but it's also got an amazing piano-based soundtrack, really great art direction, and it's just a very chill game. I'll have more to say on it soon because I think it's going to be an unwind pick.
All right. Well, that should be it, John.
All right. Well, I want to thank our two sponsors again for this episode. That's Collide and Squarespace. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. We're on Mastodon too, and we have special landing pages where you can easily follow us. Federico's Fetici.MacStories.net, and I'm JohnVorhees.MacStories.net. And of course, we're still on Instagram, where Federico is at Fetici. That's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.